Welcome to the Dojo Outfitters Show. I'm your host, Ian Kuiper. Today, our guest is 2016 Olympic Silver Medalist in Judo and BJJ Black Belt under John Danaher, and friend of the show, Travis Stevens. What's up, Travis?
How's it going, guys?
Man, like I said earlier, this is so surreal for me, so I just want to say thank you so much. This is such an honor to get to sit here and talk, and I'm really excited to ask you some fun questions today.
Good. This should be fun.
So I actually want to start it off with right away. I watched a BJJ Fanatics interview that you did about a year ago, and you were basically talking about being at the Olympics and how most people set a goal. Most people never set a goal so high and achieve it that they can't kind of understand how that feels. And I thought it was such an interesting quote from you, and I kind of want to dig a little deeper into that with you.
Here's a great way to think about it. An athlete's life is sped up to like the 10th degree, right? Think about, for like the listeners, like what would be like your ideal job, right? What would be like, how much money do you want to have in the bank when you retire? Like these are types of things that like average people think about, like graduating college and getting a job. When an athlete sets a goal and it ends, their life is over. Right? Let that kind of like sink in. Like if you were 24, 25 and your life ended, what would that feel like? Right? And what people don't understand is they're like, oh, but you do something else that's different. And it's like, you don't understand when you look at the percentages of your life, right? I've been doing judo since I was a kid, right? Like I missed my middle years, but for argument's sake, like I've been an athlete from 6 until 30. Now, anybody that could do some math for us, what's the percentage of my life spent in the work towards being an Olympic champion? Boom, done, over. I've only dedicated such a small percentage of my life, and it was when I was an infant, to anything other than that. So when you walk off the mat after the Olympics, what do? Like, where do we go from here? And the people that don't necessarily have the best success are the ones that have dedicated time in the middle there to something outside of it. I remember having a conversation with Marty Malloy after 2016, and she has a master's degree in marketing. Couldn't get a job. She was 30 years old, multiple-time Olympian, Olympic medalist, world medalist, ranked in the top 5 in the world, and she couldn't get a job. Because guess what? People, when they graduate college and they're 23, they get work experience, they get entry-level positions, and they grow up through the ranks, and by the time they're 30, with a master's, they have a backing in the industry that they can work from. Could you imagine right now having $0 in the bank and starting your life over? That's what it's like for an Olympic athlete in the sport of judo. And people just can't even wrap their head around like dedicating so much of their life to something and then having to start over.
Yes. So that kind of has that got me thinking about another question: is why is there no backing for USA Judoka, especially the Olympians?
Ooh, we're going on a touchy subject. I'm gonna piss some people off here.
My second question, and I'm like, boom.
Hey, I don't mind answering because I'll tell them too. I don't care. So think about wrestling. The sport of wrestling is a great example. There are so many people that the cream rises to the top, right? Just by sheer numbers. If you got 1 million people doing something, there's bound to be like some competitive ones in there that continually push each other. right? Like, right now, look, for argument's sake, I could walk into 81 kilos having never done judo, and I could win senior nationals. Just let that like sink in. A guy that hasn't even trained, hasn't been to the gym, hasn't dedicated any amount of time into the sport could just walk in and win. That's the lack of competitiveness in the country. And that's why there's really no backing, is because when you look at successful people, you can't bullshit them at the end of the day. And people tend to see right through it. You know, a lot of our athletes and a lot of our competitors that are here today, like, they want to be treated like superstars, but they don't treat themselves like superstars. They don't put in the hours, they don't put in the work, they don't put in the dedication, they don't brand themselves across social media, they're not getting out there, they're not doing interviews, they're not doing podcasts. It's 8 o'clock at night, I've been up since 5:30, and we're sitting here having a conversation doing what? Promoting the brands. Right? That's what we're doing. We're being professionals. Nobody's making money here today.
Right.
Right? It's not about getting paid. It's about, you know, giving back, talking to people, educating people, getting your image out there, getting the brands out there, helping everybody out. And nobody's willing to put in the work. So the people with money, like, what are they going to spend their money on? For what? So that you can have nice things? Like, nobody who has money just wants to do feel-good things. And the people in the judo community, they want handouts. They don't want jobs. Right? Like, I need people to go to work. Right? We get into this debate all the time in the judo world, right? We should have one centralized location. Who should have it? I don't care who has it. You could put it in Boston, San Jose, Miami, Texas, Colorado, Seattle, Kansas, Arkansas. I don't even care. Right? As long as it's centralized and everybody comes together and everybody works together, we'll be successful. But you know what? Whoever you're going to put in charge, they better own it. They better not pawn it off. They better not get a 9-to-5 working something else. They better live and breathe the sport of judo and dedicate themselves to the athletes. But nobody's willing to. Yeah. I remember when I ran a blog one time, a great example of the American market. I put out one survey question, and I said, what qualifies a good coach? Take a gander, just throw it at me. Give me your top 2 things that qualify a good coach, and I bet you won't hit the number 1 response. There's a game show like this, right?
Okay, well, I mean...
Throw it at me, let's play a game.
Okay, well, the number 1 thing would be to be a good coach. No, I'm just kidding. I would say I think competitor. I think that being a competitor would definitely be something that would make someone a better coach. Like being active in the...
Okay.
Being active.
Okay, let's just take that as like your answer.
Cool.
And then let me throw this at you. The NBA. How many of them are NBA players?
Oh, all of them.
And they're coaches.
Most.
Most.
Most. Not all, but most. I'd say 90%.
And then now let's go into baseball.
Shoot.
And then hockey.
Baseball is like all. Yeah. It's like all former players as coaches.
Right, and managers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go into the NHL and you can go into these other things. Right? I'm on the other side of the fence where, like, I don't think you have to be a player. I think you have to truly love the sport of judo or whatever it is you're coaching, and you have to be willing to learn and study, and your passion is the educational side of the sport. Right? John Danaher is a great example of that, has never competed. But you know what he loves? He loves jiu-jitsu. And he enjoys locking himself in a room, going down YouTube and studying and breaking down film to find that one thing that he can give his athletes an advantage. That's what inside of him makes him better. Right? That sheer love and passion and his willingness to help his athletes. You know what the number 1 response I got across thousands of people?
Let me guess. Hold on. I want to guess.
Yeah. Guess.
But,
give me your guess.
I really... People are idiots, though. Except for
you're gonna have to pull this answer from left field.
except for our followers on YouTube and your followers on YouTube.
You're all idiots. You're all idiots.
Man, I'm trying to, because it's obviously not going to be a regular answer. So
Patience?
having a nice school. No. All right, hit me with it.
You're financially well off and you can afford to do the job because they assume you're not going to get paid.
Wow.
You can financially fund yourself to go do the things that need to be done. That's the number one response that makes a good coach from the sport of judo for the United States. You can afford to do it. Just think about that. They've gone into the entire question with the idea of, well, they've got to be able to pay for themselves to go, right? Because I'm not going to do it.
Man.
Like, it had nothing to even do with like time on a mat and understanding of the sport and understanding of international competitors, the rule set, how to qualify for the Olympics. You have to be financially stable enough to afford to do the job.
That's just not right? I mean,
could you imagine that? Could you imagine going into the NBA saying, hey, I want to coach the Mavericks, and then be like, well, what do you do for your regular job, and can you afford to travel with the team and be there for the team? Like, that's insanity.
yeah.
So like the whole idea of like supporting the 1% and supporting the people that you could really brand and market, everybody is against it because everybody wants something for themselves. Everybody wants that seat at the top of the table, but nobody wants to do the job.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're talking about this because I actually saw an interview that you did. You might not even remember this because it was a young kid.
Sure,
No, this guy only had 200 subscribers. I don't even know how I found this video, but his name is Billy the Bat Boy, and he asked you.
I remember him.
It was a 3-minute quick interview, and
Yep.
towards the end, he asked you a really interesting question, and you had a really interesting answer. And he said, "What you think the future of USA Judo is?" And your answer was, "You don't know." Because they're not letting you in on stuff.
Yep.
What? That's hard for me. That's kind of hard for me to believe.
No, I mean, when I was going to retire in 2016, I applied for a job. I put together a plan. I wrote a letter to the USJF and I said, hey, why don't you guys put me on salary, $50,000 a year. I'll do 10 seminars, that's $5,000 each. That's what you guys give to each Idanshu guy to actually grow the sport of judo. And I said, I'll fly in, I'll teach a dedicated system of judo, right? Every place will get basically the same curriculum, so all of your kids will be learning the same thing. And then all of the proceeds that you guys charge for all the kids to come in, you guys can keep and put back into the system. Right? If you only make $2,000 and it only costs you $3 to bring me in, which is cheaper than my rate for all the clubs. And then if you make more, then you have more money to put into the system. But you'd be supporting an Olympic silver medalist. I'd have a stable job where I could actually like think out and plan and dedicate it and help grow the sport of judo and get kids excited to be in the sport. And you guys have the ability to raise more money than what you've put into the system to fund more kids to do other activities. And I got an email back on one, and then the second email I sent went unresponded to. So then I went to USA Judo and I said I want to be the head coach of the under-23 team. And I wrote out an entire business plan of where you guys are at today, how we're going to take them to the next level, how we're going to fund it, and how I'm going to get all of the kids that are part of the under-23 paid when they're in high school, and starting regional training camps across the country using all of the under-23 athletes to run regional camps for kids and training sessions for them to use the kids so that we could actually market their image within the region that they're already from, because as you start to build their brand in the region, you can gain support for the athlete because they're going to need funding to go to other events. Now you have a pool of people that are actually know who they're funding, they've interacted, they've gotten something from them, and there's a back and forth where there's a trade-off of information and a likeness there where you can trade dollars later on when the kid actually has to go somewhere.
I'm kind of missing the disconnect here. I mean, this is an
the disconnect happened when they told me there were other people in the sport of judo, names who shall not be mentioned, that were upset that they were next in line to take the under 23 job. Mind you, there hadn't been an under 23 team in like 6 or 8 years. I was a member of the under 23 team the last time it existed. I retired at 30, which means for 6 years there was no team. So whoever should have had that job or was going to have that job or needed that job, they just didn't take it. Or USA Judo just didn't want to put money into it and use the funds that are given from the USOC to actually fund the position so that somebody could actually manage and lead these kids. You know, actually help them go from where they are today to reaching that next level, because the type of judo that you're successful with at the junior level doesn't translate into the senior level, which is why Europe has the under 23 division, because there's actually systematic changes you have to make in order to have success on the world circuit. Some people can learn it early, but a lot of times people can win under 23 European championship, but they'll finish 7th at the senior level because they're not quite there yet. Physically, mentally, emotionally, tactically, sometimes there's just a learning curve that you got to go through. And right now there's nobody in our country leading kids to actually go through that and help guide them along.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth from the time the Olympics was over with in around like September, October-ish, all the way up until March, when they took my business plan, they took all my information, they took my tournament selection, they took my athlete selection, they took everything I gave them on Excel sheets, documents, and then they said, you know what, Travis, we just feel like you're not qualified for the job. And we left it at that.
I mean, if you're not qualified though, and I mean, this is obviously, I'm nobody, I don't know anything, but if you're not who's more qualified than you besides your head coach? Not nobody.
I mean, we're dealing with people that are trying to befriend the masses, right? They want to be everybody's best friend. I don't want to be everybody's best friend. I want to be successful and I want to win. I don't care who I piss off in the meantime. As long as the athlete's taken care of and we're winning. I don't care what anybody else thinks.
That sounds like a perfect coach. That is exactly the kind of coach Team USA would need, correct?
I don't know who we need. I don't know. Because at the end of the day, right, I went on Flow Grappling and I watched the documentary on Daisy Fresh, right? Anybody that hasn't seen it, go watch it. And actually look at it from a point of what could I take away from what they're doing at Daisy Fresh and why are they being successful? And I remember watching it and I'm like, these people are crazy. And not in a good way. They're completely moronic, right? The things that they're doing, they're living on the mats, they have one pot for 7 guys, they're sleeping on Thai pads that they're just used in class, they're sharing gis, they have a gi sponsor, and they're sharing gis. Come on, show your roll, send them 100 gis. Come on, man, if you're their official sponsor, let's go, they shouldn't be flip-flopping here.
Shoot, that would be embarrassing though, right? To find out, it'd be oh yeah, we ain't sending them any gis.
Come on, guys, help them out. Get those guys outfitted if you're going to be their sponsor. They're clearly struggling.
Yeah, otherwise we're going to have to send them some Fuji gis, right?
I don't even want to...
No comment.
Yeah, no comment. But the number one thing I took away from that entire documentary was all of the athletes that are there, they have the mindset that they are suffering and they are going through it, and because they are suffering, they're going to win because they have suffered more than the person across the mat. Now, mind you that I am not of the belief that athletes have to suffer in order to be successful. I think that's absolutely ludicrous, right? But it doesn't matter. What matters is they internalize that belief, and because they believe it, because they believe in the system, because they believe if they go through this hardship, that they can in turn succeed because they're going to fight harder because they've gone through and they've struggled more than the guy across the mat. And they're successful because of that belief. Somebody, I don't know who it is going to have to actually sit down and rally the troops in this country around some sort of system and belief that whatever they're doing, they're going to win. I'll tell anybody this, man, the most dangerous fighter is a happy fighter. Somebody that truly believes in what they're doing and why it's going to make them successful, right? The Japanese, right? Somebody could say they have the best program in the world, but they just have the numbers, right? They don't dominate the world. The girls' French team kills the Japanese team, right? The men's team won the world team championships, right? But those players all lose too, right? There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's up to the coach and the athlete to actually grow and bond and build that trust so that when you step out on that mat, you guys are competing as a unit. You're not bickering, you're not fighting. I can tell you right now that as an athlete, the number one cause for me losing is a distrust into what the person in the chair is actually telling me, because I'm actually fighting with them thinking, you keep telling me to do this thing, but I'm telling you, it's not going to work. We are already at odds and you keep saying it. I'm not going to do that. I'm angry at you. I'm angry that I'm getting my ass kicked, right? I can't figure it out. You're frustrating me. Here's one. Hey, come on, let's go. I'm trying. I'm out here. Do you not see me trying? I'm trying, right? You telling me to come on and you telling me to hurry up ain't helping me, right? You don't think I'm trying? I'm trying, right? You start getting in this mindset where every athlete is a little different and everybody gets motivated in a different way, and it's up to the coach to have that bond and know how to speak and translate and communicate with athletes. Mm-hmm. And it's just, somebody's got to be the glue that's going to hold the country together. And I don't know who it's going to be. I honestly think we're too broken.
Dang.
To even try. I hate to say it, but the only way to do it is to actually sit down in a closed room with people, no cell phones, no emails, no nothing, and say, what are we going to do? And you walk out of that room with a plan and nobody gets to know it. And you leave everybody behind who is not in that room. Say, I'm sorry, this is where we're going. We're going to follow this plan. We're going to do this plan. This is how we're going to do it. This is where the money's going. This is how we're going to fund it. And this is everything we need to be successful.
Yeah.
Because this whole everybody gets everything when there's not a big enough pot to take care of everybody, then it's just doomed for failure.
Yeah.
It's
sad. I'm super glad that we got to talk about that, because it's definitely interesting hearing your perspective on where the state of USA Judo is. And as I was watching some of the videos that you have on YouTube, by the way, follow Travis on YouTube, Travis Stevens' YouTube channel. You actually watched all your matches for the 2016 Olympic Games back to back in a stream. And
yep.
In your first match, I heard you say something, and it was just it's like just one of those quotes you hear from someone wise, one of your senseis or something, and you said you gotta fight the fight first. And I thought it was so interesting because there's always so many other things to worry about, but can you kind of dig into where you got fight the fight from?
So when I'm coaching and when I'm actively training and doing stuff, right? There's always something. I don't know what it is, but there's always going to be something where there's like an epicenter of the action. And if you could know what that is at all time, you're going to understand what you're fighting for. Right? Like, are you fighting for a position? Are you fighting to free a grip? Are you trying to get a grip? Like, are you actively have to fight away from a person, close the distance, lower your level, move their head? You've got to figure out what that is. And what a lot of people do is they forget. They do all these different things all at once, and they're so sporadic. It's like a guy trying to do 10 different tasks or write 10 different emails at the same time. And it's like, hey, how about you just stop? You do one thing at a time until you're successful. When I'm coaching jiu-jitsu, I refer to it as like a ladder system. Like, hey, gain some ground, gain some more ground, gain a little bit more ground. If any time you feel like you've lost ground, pause, take a deep breath, figure out where you've lost it. Don't try to go to step 7 when you're actually on step 4. Like, go to step 5, go to step 6, and fight for it. It's a fight. Like, you gotta fight for every inch, right? Too many people in this sport, they watch 120 Homes, they watch highlights, they watch Ono like do these things, they watch, Elmont do like this crazy title, and they just keep trying to mimic it. But what they don't understand is like, there's an entire history behind that athlete as to why this technique is working for them, right? Like, hey, go back, actually watch that athlete and watch all the times that he missed it, right? They're trying. Judo's a little bit like baseball, right? Like, if I had 30%, I'd be in the Hall of Fame of baseball. Well, hey, if I threw somebody 30% of the time I attacked, I'd be an Olympic and world champion. Right? Think about it. Every time you tried to turn your back and throw somebody or hook in or foot sweep somebody and they fell for your palm, hey man, I'm a world champion. Right? We miss more than we're successful. That's just the nature of the beast. And I think a lot of people they forget inherently in their own heads that like they beat themselves up. When I first started coaching, I would have a trouble finding a balance with a lot of athletes, specifically the female ones too, where they do something right. Like, let's say they throw somebody for this sweetie palm, and then they come back out, and then the next exchange, they miss it, and then the next time they miss it. When the round ends, they come to me and they're like, hey, I just feel like my steps are off or I'm doing this thing. And they forget that their opponents are allowed to make good moves too. Right? You can do everything right and still fail. Welcome to life, people. Like, that doesn't mean you have to stop doing the right things. So you have to learn how to like train and do the right things and fight for the right things, not the things that make you successful. Right? A lot of people, when they're first practicing and getting good, they cheat the rules. Right? Like, if I want to do a scissor sweep, if I want to do Ippon Senagi, there's a 1, 2, 3 step I'm supposed to follow. But because I'm going with another white belt or another blue belt that makes all these big mistakes that I can just capitalize on, I just do that because I want to be successful right here and right now. And you're just taking all these shortcuts. So by the time you get to purple belt and brown belt, you wonder why you're not a black belt, because you've cut the angles and you've cut yourself short in all these like growth areas that now you're fucked. So then when athletes come to me and they're like, hey, I want to be an Olympian, I'm ready to go to that next level, how about you put on a white belt and I reteach you judo from the very beginning so that you stop making these stupid shortcuts. Because when you go into the higher levels, they're going to punish you and it's not going to work. You got to learn to fight for every inch. Fight for the things that are right, fight for each step. Don't take the easy road, don't go around it, don't go over here, like, fight for it.
Have you always been a super smart, what's
I'm
the
a
right...
dumb motherfucker.
No.
No,
sir.
I barely graduated high school. I got thrown out of San Jose State. I failed all my classes. Lost some scholarship.
That's school.
I can't even get into a college.
Yeah.
My SAT score was like 600.
Yeah, that's I don't count that though.
No, I'm just kidding, but
I don't. Hey.
Yeah,
You're so. Is it everything that you've been through that kind of makes you have this type of perspective, or have you kind of always been You're a
Here's
sharp
the number
man.
one bit of advice I'll give everybody.
Hey,
Number one bit
hit
of
us.
advice. Here we go. You know nothing. I'm like a Jedi. See me waving my hands. You know nothing. Now go do something. Right? Because the number one problem people have is they come into some activity, something, and then they try to take all of their life experience and apply it to this thing. Hey, your life experience outside of this thing, 100% irrelevant. I don't care who you are, I don't care how intelligent you are, you don't know. So shut your mouth, follow the steps, and do what you're told. It's that simple.
It really
Why is that so hard?
Ego?
Right? I come to all my classes, right? All my classes. Even judo classes. I look at the kids and I'm like, hey, what's your hand doing there? And he goes, what, here? And I'm like, yeah. Who told you to grab the gi there? And he goes, well, I don't know. So then why is it there? Why is that so hard? Who told you to put your hand there? Well, I don't know. I just felt like I should grab it. Since when are you the authority figure on how to do judo? You come to me for that. But you're going to do your own thing? I'm out. I'm out. You don't need me. We're done. Game over. Right? You're already doing your own thing. I don't even know what to say. They don't want to follow the steps. They just want to make it up on the fly. Because they're afraid to fight for it. They feel like they can't do it. They quit. They don't have that willpower, that desire, that drive to like, no, I'm supposed to have this thing. I have to get this thing. They have to obsess over that step until they get it.
Man, you're blowing my mind over here.
People are quitters.
Well, judo and jiu-jitsu is super easy to quit.
No, people are quitters at all walks of life. How many times you wake up and didn't take the trash out? You just walk right by it. How many times you look at the dishes in the sink and don't clean them? How many times you look at that empty fridge and you order Domino's instead of going to the grocery store? You know better. You just don't do it. We all know how to eat healthy. None of us do it. Look at me, I'm fat. I put on like 40 pounds. What do you want me to do? I even paid for a chef to make my meals. I still went to Panera today.
Okay, I definitely want to talk to you about Andy. Andy's the owner of Dojo Outfitters. I was wondering if maybe you could give me a couple of stories. Tell me a story I don't know about Andy.
Andy was my first roommate when I moved to San Jose State. I was poor. He was rich. What? Why is that funny? I slept on Andy's floor for the first semester of college. That's how broke I was.
He couldn't even get you like a couch or something?
We were in college.
No
I think
wonder.
you missed that part.
Yeah.
But we had this roommate, Takeshi. It was those two, and then I crashed with them because I drove down to San Jose State with Marty and she stayed somewhere else. We kind of split up once we went down there to like, they just found us places to stay and people to stay in different areas, right? We used to stay up until, sometimes till weightlifting the next morning, playing Mario Kart. It didn't matter. We would just play video games all night. And it would always be me and Andy versus Takeshi. Oh, what game did we play? There was a very specific game where you had to collect stars. Some kind of Mario game.
Mario?
Yeah. I can't remember what it was though. I have to ask him.
Tell me about training with Andy. Did you get the best of him or what?
Yep.
Yeah, tell me more. I hope he doesn't see this.
I'm responsible for Andy's cauliflower.
No!
Yep.
He's tried desperately to get me collie ear. It's just not happening.
I'll give it to you.
No, thank you. Well, maybe.
I thought
I'll
that
do
was like a challenge.
No, I kind of want it. My wife doesn't want me to have it, but I want it, just because when I see people with cauliflower ear, my first question is, where do you train?
My first impression when I see people with cauliflower ears is, you must really suck because I don't recognize you, and that's not good for you. right? Because if you were a good wrestler, I know who you are. If you were really good at MMA, I know who you are.
Yeah.
If you're really good at jiu-jitsu, I know who you are. If you're really
Dang.
good at boxing, I probably know who you are. So if you're walking around with cauliflower and I don't know who you are,
Yikes.
you didn't try hard.
Well, I'm average anyway, so I might as well have average ears.
But when I was training with Andy at San Jose State, I was locked in on a juji, and John Servin, the coach at the time, was walking around. He was like, Travis, you gonna get it? You just gonna let him sit there? And he was egging me on, and I was pulling on Andy's arm, and I couldn't get it. So I was like, oh, you fucking prick, here we go. And I had my knee right by his head on the ground, trying to turn him over the turtle position. And I just started taking my knee, and I started bashing the side of his head. So I started like pushing his arm through it, and then I put my knee and his head together, and I pull as hard as I could, and I push my knee, and I get that scissor action. And for the last 45 seconds, I just started bashing his head in. I was like, if I can't get it, I'm just gonna beat the crap out of you. I was vicious when I was younger.
So did it just like blew up?
It just blew up. It was like a little golf ball, all purple, before he even left the dojo. But you know what? I'll give him credit. I didn't get his arm.
You didn't get him though.
No, give him credit though. I didn't get it.
Wow.
Yeah, he held out.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
You
gotta give him credit, man. He held out.
Well, that's one of the toughest people I've ever met in my life, so I totally get it. Before we get you out of here, I do want to ask you, I don't know if you have any interest, but who's number one is on tonight. It's a big jiu-jitsu tournament, and Gordon Ryan is fighting in it, and I kind of want to get your take on Gordon before we get you out of here.
Okay. Was that the question?
That was the question, yeah.
Oh, that was the question. What about Gordon?
What do you think of him?
Like as a human being, or
I guess
jiu-jitsu?
Both, please.
What's a good way of putting it? I want to do it in kind of like an intelligent way where like people understand what I'm trying to say.
Please. Take your time.
For a while when I first started jiu-jitsu, so going back into like 2012, 2013, 2014, when Gordon was still just a purple belt. I think about the level of judo that I've competed at and the level and the years it took for a lot of the international people to get to where they are. I would be curious to, go into judo and actually like sit down all the Olympic medalists and be like, how long have you done judo for? I guarantee you're not going to find anybody in that realm that's done judo for less than 5 years. Right? I don't think it's there. Like, when I think about the NFL and you go, hey, how long have you played football for? There are some people in some positions that can just say, hey, I'm a big guy, I'm very athletic, and I could learn a playbook and I can play this position because it doesn't actually require anything more than me being in a spot and getting somewhere really fast. Right? It's very simple. But when you look at sports or positions like the quarterback, where like, could you really just like learn how to throw a football, read a field, and do all these things and lead a team in 5 years?
No.
Right? Can you really just like be 20 years old and put on a pair of skates and then go play in the NHL? Like, we're getting into these things with these sports. They are so defined by the competitiveness of the sport that everybody pushes that tempo. Everybody pushes the boundary. Everybody trains. Everybody works hard. Everybody studies. Everybody's finding these new ways to improve and get better. Right? I feel like jiu-jitsu is like the good old boys club at all times. And I feel like there's this secret room or this secret society that happens in the sport of jiu-jitsu where they all talk to each other. They are all friends with each other. They all take care of each other. it's like this giant like conspiracy that like nobody really gets to be a part of, right? And I think it really held the sport back because nobody had to push each other anymore, right? Like I just think about dedicating my entire life to winning an Olympic medal and getting to the final and going, you know what? It's yours. Let's play paper, rock, scissors for it. Like, what's it truly worth now? Right? You've dedicated your entire life to this sport to just give it up. You didn't even have to fight for it. Right? You get people that are like passing people over and doing all these things where it's like, could you imagine? Could you just wrap your head around turning on the TV to watch the Stanley Cup or the Super Bowl and having the other team walk on the field and say, hey, let's flip a coin for who wins? Who's really training and who's really trying? And I feel like they've protected themselves for so long that they forgot what it's like to really train and try. They're just protecting each other all of the time. And I think what Gordon did was he actually approached the sport in a professional manner. He actually studied, he actually trained, he actually works hard. And you know what? He poked a hole in their like ecosystem. And now nobody knows what to do with it. Like I'm at a loss.
Yeah.
Like, how are guys in their 30s and 40s some of the most popular, dominant people in the sport? What happened to the rest of them? Right? Who's 35 and a superstar in any major league sport where it's actually a combat physical sport? Boxing, MMA, like, take your pick. There's like a hill that people go over, but right now, like, you look at the Masters 1 division, and they're the people that can kind of win the adult division. How does that happen? Because there's a certain level of respect that's given in jiu-jitsu where it's not actually competitive. I almost have like a big brother syndrome where I can't beat my coach, I can't do this. You should be trying to retire. I remember when I was in San Jose State, if Chuck Jefferson ever grabbed my gi, I was trying to kill him. If Tetsu ever grabbed my gi, I was taking his head off. I was there to win. I don't care. I'm here to improve me, this guy. I'm not here to protect your ego. Like, you want it? Come take it. It's yours. But I'm here too. Like, I'm ready to stay. Like, we're competing for this spot. And right now, I think everybody's got this, like, feel good, like, oh, hey man, let's be bros, don't train so hard, don't do this. Hey man, easy, careful, control yourself. And it's like, Gordon just came in and he's like, no, I'm here. Let's play. Let's go.
Okay.
And I just think they don't know how to handle it. And you kind of got to respect the guy for being a professional and exposing their lack of professionalism in the sport. A great example is, I'm shocked. I'm going to put this on camera. I am shocked that Atos, right? I know there's an Atos DDS like thing out here, and I don't have a stake in this. I have zero stake in this. Zero.
I was literally going to ask you this question.
But like, I just hope this doesn't get clipped out, but it's probably going to get clipped out, so what are you going to do? How do you not, like, forget the fact that Andre's not going to fight Gordon, right? I don't even care. That's not even a thing. But Andre, how do you not sit down with your team for 6 months and beat Gordon? Like, why don't you just put everything else aside? Right? Like, if I'm training for the Olympics, I had a notepad. It had the top 10 guys that I had problems with. It had all of their solutions. I showed up every day and I worked those things. I trained those things. I forgot about everybody else because I was like, you know what? As long as I'm healthy, as long as I'm in shape, I'm beating those guys. Here's my guys that I gotta like, I could be a little nervous for, and I gotta get rid of those nerves if I'm gonna perform. So I developed a choke with Turkishvili. I developed like certain things. And you know what? Everybody I fought the day of the Olympics, in 2012 and 2016, apart from one, beat me the last time we fought. But you know what? I showed up with a plan. I dedicated my time to the plan. I believed in my plan, and I was successful. What they do is they show up and they're like, well, I'm training for this, I'm training for that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Why don't you sit down, study some film, come up with a plan, and attack it? Why has nobody done it? You're telling me nobody is intelligent enough to actually study buy Gordon's DVDs. He puts all his techniques on DVDs. What more do you need to know? Watch his film. You have all these athletes that have all competed against him. Put your heads together. You guys all claim you're world-class people. Put your heads together, develop a plan, study the plan, get together. You got a professional team, right? You guys should be doing jiu-jitsu 8, 9, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. Jiu-jitsu's easy. You lay down half the time. I did judo and jiu-jitsu for 8, 9, 10 hours, and I had to get hit with the floor. I'm shocked. And it just proves that like they have this ecosystem where they're just going to protect themselves. Yeah. And it's so disappointing.
Okay.
I love the sport, I love what it's for, but like, it's hard for me to kind of like get behind it when like you see the lack of professionalism.
Okay, no, it was good. Last question. I've said last question like a bunch of times, but...
We can do this all day.
Hey.
I'm game.
Talk to me, okay, this is my boy, Quentin Frosty. You know your boy Frosty, when's he getting his black belt? I'm going to ask for him. He did not ask me.
He already asked me.
Huh?
He already asked me.
Oh, well, I'm asking now. What's up with my boy Frosty?
So here's my thing. Everybody who reaches the next level, whether you're a blue belt going to purple belt, whether you're a purple belt going to a brown belt, whether you're a brown belt going to a black belt, you've gotten to a certain level doing a certain thing, right? You would agree with that, right? Like white belts started, they got to a certain thing, they got good at something, they got a blue belt. Then they got good at this thing, and then they got their purple belt, and then they learn some more stuff, and they get good at a couple other things, and they get their brown belt. Frosty is very good at what he does. What Frosty lacks is an internal belief in his ability to make good decisions in the unknown. If you teach Frosty 1, 2, 3, this is what you do in part 1, this is what you do in part 2, here's how they're going to attack part 2, and here's how you counter it, and here's how we go into part 3. He has the athletic ability, the willpower, and he's in shape enough to accomplish these things. It's why he's had success at brown belt and why I gave him his brown belt. But one thing he needs to understand is he has to be able to get out of that comfort zone and learn that when he is in a world of uncertainty, he has an inherent belief that he will make the right decision. Right? So I don't need to, when I'm training with people, I don't care that you have the ability to counter my technique. Do you know why? Because when you do, I know I'm going to have the right answer. I don't even know what it is yet. But I know enough to where if we get in a situation, right, I could have never seen it before, but I know enough to say, that's a good grip. This is a good position. Here's where I should put my hand, having never seen the move or done anything of it before. That's what he needs to figure out, because he's a big guy. He's 220. He's 6'2". He's athletic. He's in shape. He's physical. It's very easy for him to just be the big guy and say, nope, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to submit you. But what happens when he goes up against somebody that's just as big, that's just as strong, and they put him somewhere where he's not used to being? He has to have that other thing that he can game plan, do things on the fly, that he can come out ahead on. once he's able to get out of the 1-2-3 and get more into that internal trust where he can show his wealth of knowledge in the sport of jiu-jitsu, then he will have his black belt.
Sounds like he's close.
Yes. And we talk about it every time we train. And I point things out to him. I'm like, hey, see this over here? Like, for example, I can just take a leap of faith and I can just do a forward roll out X guard. It doesn't matter. I don't care where you go. I don't care how we do it, because I will figure it out along the way, because I understand how to position my body in relationship to yours and what is good and what is bad. There's no necessarily like set technique. There's an inherent feel to the sport. Like a flow training session where like you just go in the right direction. And Frosty is very rigid and very like 1-2-3. So the thing I need him to learn for that next stage is that inherent ability.
Well, I just want to say, dude, thank you so much again. I know it's 9 o'clock in Boston right now, so let you get back to the wife, and man, thank you so much, Travis.
Back into the office.
Back to the more work. I'm not surprised, honestly, after talking to you. So, dude, thank you so much. This has been unreal. I hope one day to get thrown by you, respectfully, obviously, and submitted, thrown and then submitted. So
I gotta throw this out here. Back to that whole like DDS Gordon thing. Just to throw it out there.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I was having dinner with Shanji and Salo one night. True story. You know what they told me? The black belt divisions are hand selected by a debate between association heads. I was jaw dropped. I was like, wait a minute. You guys collectively go into a room and debate who gets to fight who? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Wrap your head around like the IBJJF world title is decided. The draw is handwritten and decided by association heads who argue and advocate for their players and who they get to fight. So if you're a no-name person and you go into the world as a black belt, you don't get a say because you don't have any standing to say, I should be positioned here or there. They're actually saying, hey, you're a tough dude. I want you to fight this tough dude because if you beat him and he beats me, I can beat you and I can make it past. That's insanity. That's utter insanity.
That's wild.
Just let that sink in, people. They are hand selecting the black belt draws based on an internal debate between association heads. Crazy.
That seems unfair.
Crazy.
Wow. It's
not even random.
Is that how do you think they should do the black belt tournaments? Random selection?
It could be random selection, it could be seeded, it could be like, hey, every association gets 2 players, they go opposite sides of the bracket, you randomize it and you have a system that sets it up that way.
Yeah.
Right? Judo has a system that is top 8 gets seeded, and then when there's 2 people in a bracket, they don't meet before the quarters, but they can meet after the quarters. And then from there, it's random. They just get thrown into a draw.
Man, that's so crazy.
That's crazy, right? I remember sitting there at dinner with them going, that can't be true. And he was showing me pictures of the draw. And I was like, that's actually handwritten. They don't even bother typing it up.
Dang, man.
Could you imagine being a 2-time world champion at black belt, having a guy come back into the sport 5 years, but he has 3 titles and he outranks you because he's got 3 world titles to your 2. He gets more of a say because he's won 3 even though he hasn't competed in 2 or 3, 4 years. That's insanity.
Dang.
That whole ecosystem just drives me wild.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you again, Dojo Outfitter family. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoy. First ever video one, so let us know. Peace.